Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. This is in part of the Spyro Reignited trilogy. I really enjoyed my time playing through the first game, and so I jumped right into the second. In this game, Spyro and his dragonfly Sparks decide they need a vacation, and so they hop into a portal which takes them to Avalar. It turns out that a group of animals was trying to summon a dragon to their world of Avalar in order to defeat the evil Ripto, who has invaded their world. And so it looks like that vacation is going to have to wait for Spyro and Sparks because we need to defeat Ripto. Kind of the same deal as the first game. Basically, we have these hub worlds. In Avalar, they take place as seasons. So we have a summer world, an autumn world, and a winter world. And in each of these seasonal worlds, there are their own little individual levels that you go to. You are still trying to collect treasure, just like in the first game, but unlike finding these dragon statues to rescue these dragons, instead you are trying to gather up these orbs, these power orb things, and you will also be needing to acquire talismans in each of the levels in order to progress in the game as well. The talismans are kind of given to you just by getting to the end of the level. They're not really something that you have to hunt down, unlike the treasure and the orbs. Treasure is just like how it is in the first game. It's scattered all over the place. And for most of the game, I was struggling finding the treasure. Just like it would seem like every single level, I had like 399 out of 400 treasure, and I could never find that last piece of treasure. It wasn't until near the end of the game that I discovered that if you push down on the left analog stick, then Sparks will point out where nearby treasure is. And I'm pretty sure this was a feature in the first game. I really wish that I had discovered this earlier because it would have made my life a lot easier trying to 100% complete both of these games, but at least now I know this for the third game. In order to receive the orbs, they have a lot of these little mini games, and these mini games range from mildly entertaining to pretty time consuming. Just typical stuff like shoot all of the things that jump out of the water, or go on a roller coaster and destroy all of the targets, or you're on a hockey rink and you have to head bash the puck into the goal 5 times. I was never super entertained with these mini games. It just seemed like something that was added to pad out the levels. Unlike the first Spyro game, when you defeat enemies, they do not drop treasure like they did in the first game. They drop spirit particles, and if you acquire enough of these spirit particles, basically these gates that are scattered throughout the level will activate, and these gates can give Spyro a varying amount of power. Like one may make it so he can walk on dangerous environment like lava. Another one may make it so he can fly instead of just glide down to the ground. I really do actually like these upgrades, and I think that if you're not going to make the enemies drop treasure, this is a pretty good incentive to still defeat the enemies as you are progressing through rather than just avoid them. Getting these powers at the end of the level is pretty important if you are trying to go for a completionist run, trying to get all of the treasure, because it is necessary for some of these powers. Like one upgrades his fire so that it can destroy objects that he otherwise could not destroy. I actually really like the upgraded flame in this game compared to the first one. In the first one, when the flame was upgraded, it would just make it stronger. In this one, he actually shoots like a fireball out. It's a lot more satisfying, and I do like flying around as well. You could fly around in the first game, but it was only in these designated flying levels. Those flying levels are also still in this game as well, in the addition to an orb in these flying levels. You know, when I'm talking about flying levels, I'm talking about like where you have to go around and defeat groups of enemies or fly through a certain number of rings. I didn't have as much trouble in this game with those flying levels as I did in the first one, but maybe that's just because I'm getting better at the flying. Either way, I was a lot less frustrated playing them in this game. Spyro also has some new abilities in his arsenal. Mainly you get these through a very rich bear with a monocle named Moneybags, and Moneybags loves to charge you treasure in order to get these abilities or in order to just actually let you have access to certain areas. This guy's pretty infamous for a reason. He's just gatekeeping you just to make sure that you have enough treasure. Most 3D platforming collectathons have some kind of gatekeeping in this way. I do like the way that they kind of personified this gatekeeping to a really rich bear, though. It makes it feel like you're actually buying stuff with your treasure rather than just hoarding it. And he is kind of fun just to hate. There are 3 abilities that he will charge you in order to teach you. One is so Spyro can swim. Yes, he can actually go in water this time around. One is that he can climb on ladders, which is kind of weird, and it does not look natural. It just looks weird for a dragon to be climbing a ladder. And the third ability is for him to kind of do this little ground pound, this slam into the ground. I do like the idea of unlocking these new abilities. The frustrating thing about this is some of the earlier levels require you to have these abilities, so if you are going for a completionist run, you are eventually going to have to come back to these levels, and these levels completely restart every time you visit them. And so if you've already like progressed to the end of the level, but you find out that you need the ability to climb a ladder, you are going to have to replay through that whole level in order to climb back up that ladder. And so it's just kind of, if you're going for a completionist run, which I am in these games, it's not very satisfying having to leave the level uncompleted, you know, at 60% completed, and have to make your way back to those levels later once you have acquired these abilities. I like the variety of characters in this game. They'll never match the variety of dragons that you rescue in the first game, but there's a lot more recognizable characters that make reoccurrences here. You know, you got Hunter, he's kind of like a cocky cheetah with a bow. There's like a friendly fawn. There's a professor, which is like an old mole. And particularly, I do like the main antagonist in this game better than the first one as well. I just enjoy seeing more of Ripto. He's definitely like a reoccurring character compared to Nasty Nork, who you only really get a cutscene at the very beginning of the game, and then you just kind of face off with him at the end with no cutscene whatsoever. And so it is nice having like an actual antagonist that is like constantly taunting you and you're chasing down. He has these 2 little henchmen dinosaurs that are kind of acting like bosses before you progress to the next seasonal world. And the bosses in this game are a lot more improved compared to the bosses in the first game as well. In the first game, you know, you hit them, then you chase them down, and then you hit them again. In this game, the boss fights actually require a little more strategy. You have like certain objectives that you're trying to go for while avoiding obstacles. The final battle was actually pretty interesting as well, because these orbs drop from the ceiling from Hunter, the cheetah, and you have to collect them before Ripto collects them, and whoever collects 3 orbs first basically gets like super powered. And so you think that I would have enjoyed this game more than the first one, but call it nostalgia if you will. I just think that the first one had something special, something magical about it. This game just kind of feels like, it's probably the mini games, but it doesn't have that magic. And it does have a lot more variety in terms of levels. Typically, whenever you enter a level, you're gonna get a little cutscene. The cinematic usually starts out as like one type of creature is making life hard for another type of creature, and so you have to help out that creature. And then when you leave the level, you'll get like a little payoff cutscene as well. These aren't ever really funny, but it's like something to introduce you to the world, what the world's all about. And there's a lot of variety in terms of all these different levels, but it's not magical, you know? It's more like silly. There's a lot of like futuristic kind of things, like Spyro is hang gliding sometimes or getting in cannons. There's one level with like robots, and then the barn animals have uprisen against them. So it's like kind of entertaining in a 90s cartoon sort of way, but in terms of like that magical world building that the first game had, this game is severely lacking. And I'm just like really not a fan of these power orbs doing these mini games in order to unlock them. I was never like excited to do one of these mini games. But overall, like I still had fun. It's still a classic 3D platforming collectathon. You're still getting the gems. You get that satisfaction of 100% completing the game. I'm going to give this game a 3 out of 5. That's a step down from the first Spyro. From what I remember, the third Spyro is more or less kind of a sequel to the second rather than the first. If I'm remembering things right, I think Spyro even hops on a skateboard and you start skating down half pipes. So I definitely think that they leaned more into the minigame 90s cartoon type of feel rather than the fantasy land from the first game. But you will just have to tune in next time for my casual review on Spyro 3. That's it for me though. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!